We are back with another episode of Circle of Trades. Todd Studer along with Travis Waldstein. Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning of Council Bluffs, Waldstein Plumbing, all-around Hawkeye guru who did not wear his Hawkeye shirt today, even though, as we're recording this, the opening game of the season is tomorrow.
I got black and gold,
Close enough.
Black and gold. I got the hat. It's all good. I had some work. Got some work to do today. So, but exciting time. Like I said, when this goes out, Colorado and North Dakota State played last night. North Dakota State got robbed, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's good to have college football back. It feels like fall. Last 3 weeks, I'm going to apologize right now. We haven't done the podcast week. We should. I've kind of ran out of energy here a little bit, but I'm going to tell you what, this last week or so, with college football kicking in, fall's around the corner, I'm pretty excited to give at this point. So the last, I don't know why, no reason behind it except that everybody's 0-0 and we're talking football again. But
yeah, you know good. How you can tell it's the beginning of the college football season?
What? Because everybody bitches about the weddings in the fall?
No, because Nebraska fans are so optimistic.
Oh yeah, well they win the preseason every year, so we know how that goes.
So yeah. Before we jump into things and talk about things that actually matter, we're a little over 24 hours away from kickoff of the Iowa game against Illinois State. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, I actually think it's great that Kirk is going to have to sit at home like everybody else and watch the game. I really think, from a football perspective and I'm not saying he doesn't know football, but I think that it's going to give his assistants to prove what they can do when he's not around. And the best thing you can say about a CEO is when they're not around, do things function the way they need to function versus when he's there. If his program is as solid as I think it is, you're not going to see a ton of change. But hopefully what's going to happen, especially on the offensive side of the ball, you're going to be allowed to let people make decisions, if that makes sense. So you're going to be able to make decisions. I think from the offensive side, I think that's really important. Oh, Kirk's going to do this, and Kirk's going to. Well, guess what? Kirk ain't going to be there tomorrow. Kirk's going to be hanging out with Mary eating, popcorn or Chex Mix or whatever he did. Watch it like the rest of us. Going, well, why did he do this or why did he do that? But I'm excited to see what Tim Lester's offense does. The running backs. I mean, the running back, they're full because they got 4, maybe even 5 really good running backs. They've got, no one talks about Brevin Dahl, who played ADM last year. He's a true freshman. He probably won't see the field this year because they're so deep. But, you look at Moulton, you look at Johnson, you look at Williams, and you look at, Jazz Patterson. I mean, you got 4 really good running backs, and an offensive line that, is finally – these guys have been the same offensive line for the last 3 years. They're finally grown up. They're finally adults. They're drinking age now, for God's sakes. I mean, that sounds terrible, but I mean, realistically, they're truly adults now. And I think they're going to play like adults. I think they're going to play like men. And, and I like what I saw with receivers. Obviously, Caleb Johnson decided to go do, twirlies with his cart 1:00 in the morning in Iowa City. Or Caleb Brown, so he's not going to be there. But I'm really curious to see what the offense is going to look like. Can Cade McNamara or Brendan Sullivan run ball? Get the ball? Can they get the ball in playmakers' hands and let the playmakers make plays? They don't have to throw 50-yard bombs, but let's get a few balls at tight end. Let's get some short dump passes, whatever. And, you're going to probably see a lot more motion. You'll be like, hey, there's 2 people moving on the offensive side of the ball. What the hell is that, if you've listened to Tim Lester at all, he's done some stuff for Chad Lasticow and with the Des Moines Register and, BTN. He's been pretty open and very honest, a lot more than Brian ever thought about being. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for what he's going to bring. And listen, if he can turn around the offense at Iowa's dog poor as it's been the last few years, he's going to make himself a lot. Either A, he's going to become the coach in waiting, or B, someone's going to come snap him up if he decides he wants to leave Iowa State. But I don't think he came here for a one and done deal. I really don't. But that's going to be the story tomorrow. What does the Iowa offense look like?
Are you optimistic enough to take the over? It's at 41.
Here's what I said earlier today. I said I want to see Iowa score 42, which Iowa scored 41 versus the Little Sisters of the Poor last year.
Yeah, so, Western Michigan game, they got 41.
Yeah, they had 41. I would love to see them score 42 and look good at it. If they score by 21, I mean, in Kirkstad, they get 21-0, they'll just clamp down in the defense and just run the ball, which I think is a huge mistake. But Kirk won't be there. So, I think they probably will cover. But, if I'm a bet, I'd probably bet the under just because of the history.
I did a little research into this just to see what I would do. I don't bet sports. I learned this lesson when I was in the 1980 Rose Bowl. I haven't bet since. But anyway. Yeah, no.
That did not go well for us.
No, that's 28-0 to Washington. Yeah, that didn't go well. Anyway, so historically looking back at Iowa and what they've given up defensively over the past, I went back 9 years and we lost 1 year to COVID. So there's 8 scores in here. The most points they've given up, and they did it twice, was 14. They least points they gave up in the game, and I'm talking about the opening game, was 3. And in 2021, they gave up 6 to Indiana, 7 to Northern Illinois in 2018. So taking a look at that, you average those 8 scores, it works out to about 8 points per game. And that means Iowa would need to score 33 to cover the over. Will Iowa score 33? They only did it once last year, and that was in that 41-point game against Western Michigan. Now, different team, different offensive coordinator, but we don't know yet. We don't know what they're going to look like.
I think the prognosticators are, I don't want to say bullish on Tim Lester, but I think there's a hope. I mean, I've seen him anywhere from 7 wins to being 11-1. I don't think nobody thinks that I was going to beat Ohio State, and I plan on being in Columbus. I'm going for the experience. I'm not going there expecting to win, but I'm going to tell you, if I was 5-0 and their offense looks pretty good, who knows? It's football. That's why we play the games. I would not bet on them, but if it's be like 2017, Iowa thought I was going to get the doors blown off by Ohio State, and we did just the opposite to them. So I think, like I said, tomorrow is going to be a stage. Next week is going to be huge. Iowa State. Iowa State's probably the second best team on their schedule. I think Iowa State is going to be a 9-10 win team. I think they could be playing for the Big 12 championship. I after what I saw from them last year with their quarterback, they're young, they're returning a ton. The Iowa State game next week is going to be a slobber knocker, and the offense needs to show signs that they can compete in that game because Iowa State will be ready to play. There is little doubt in my mind for next week.
Well, that's a Hawkeye preview for this Friday as we're recording this. Let's talk a little business. I know that I follow you on social media, and you have what I affectionately describe as zero filter. Yeah. And you posted something recently about what has happened to the housing costs in the country, across the country. But it's happened here locally for us too. Absolutely. I mean, the houses are going for a lot more than they used to be. And that means that the average income that someone needs to be able to afford a house, and we're not talking about if everything works perfectly, but if you're being responsible financially, what do you need to be able to afford an average house? And that number annually is now over $100,000.
Which is
that's
crazy.
Not the medium income where we live.
No, it's not even close. But that's what they're saying. And if you look at the housing market here locally, but you can take this, you can take a look at California, you take a look at Iowa, Texas, whatever. It's all over. I had a guy who worked for me, just moved to Pennsylvania. He can still buy a house out there for $150,000. I don't know how. I don't know how he lives. He lives outside of Pittsburgh, and I'm like, you can buy a house for $110,000. I said, you better jump on it,
Mm-hmm.
because I said it's not going to stay that way forever. Um, and he's got a pretty decent paying job. He was equivalent to what he was making out here. But yeah, 106,000, I think is the number, is what it was that I showed. And I'm sitting there going, okay, $106,000. That's a, I mean, that's a pretty damn good job. I mean, for a, a family of four, husband and wife both working, I don't think it on a household medium income, 150,000 is out of the question. I think probably in this day and age with where we're currently at. But if you need a minimum of $100,000, really income to really honestly be considered, holy cow! And then you look at the housing market. I mean, I know what my house has done since 2017. Mine is doubled in what the value is. Pretty steady. Then all of a sudden, boom! It went way up, and it's like, okay, so, and I'm 51 years old. So I mean, listen, I'm looking at this thing as an investment. I'm like, baby, keep going up, because I figure when I go to sell this thing, it's better than the stock market. And I tell my Edward Jones guy that, he gets mad at me, but I'm like, well, it's an investment, for me or for somebody,
Right.
you know, but okay. So if you're 18 to 25 years old, young, wanting to start a family, you know, if you're looking, if you're looking at a starter home, and you got to have $100,000 of income between the two of you just to be able to get into that. And let's say it's a $300,000 house. And I'm going to run a quick number here as we're sitting there talking on this. I'm going to pull over here, but let's see, what is it? House payment.
Well, I do know that. I mean, there's some nice neighborhoods in Council Bluffs where 10 years ago you could buy a house for 175,000. Now it's 400.
I mean, I'm just going to use three. I'm going to go 350. The reason I'm using this number is I've had a real estate agent tell me that number is a pre-average 30-year fixed interest rate at 7% interest. This is before taxes. If you have to have PMI, your payment on that's $2,400 a month.
And by the time you add, as you said, insurance and taxes, and if that's the cost of the house, as all the property values go up, the government is not decreasing the tax percentage; they're collecting the money.
Yeah.
So you're looking at what, probably over $3,000 per month on that house payment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and if you go, let's say you go 450, which a lot of these homes around here now, if they're anything decent, they're 450. You're at $3,000 a month. Okay, so you're $3,000 a month. So if you're making $30 an hour, so if you're making $30 an hour and you're working a month, you got one person working the entire month in your household, basically to pay the mortgage and insurance on a $450,000 house. It's not quite bad as if it's 350, but I mean, it's more than your 25% threshold.
Right.
And so you take a look at that. You take a look at throwing $100,000 of college debt onto, and this is part of where you're going, and you're having to make $1,000 student loan payments. I mean, don't let's not even throw kids into this equation for a minute. So I mean, so you start figuring out. So let's say it's $100,000 student debt. You're paying $1,000 a month because they used whoever for it. You're talking $3,500. $2,300 plus $1,000, $3,300 a month before you pay for a vehicle, insurance, groceries, everything like that. Them numbers are scary if you're 23, 24 years old. So if you're going to school, you have to understand the economics of A, what you're going to school for, and B, it better be a good paycheck, because if you're going to go to college, you're going to the same $10 an hour job that you had before, make the same money after having a 4-year degree. You're throwing your money away. You'll never catch up. So And then you flip on the other side. So let's say you go into the trades, so, the thing that I can tell you about going into the trades, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, metal fabrication, whatever it is that a person wants to do. And there's all kinds of different trade and skills out there where you can get into ironworkers, 4-year apprenticeship program where you're not paying for student debt. You're not paying for student loans. You're getting work. You're working while you're getting paid. And you're going to come out of this and, you're going to be making close to $100,000 a year, as a journeyman, between 75 and 100. And if you're certain parts of the country, you're going to make well over $100,000 a year, but you don't have that $100,000 of college debt, and think about it. And that during that time, you could start maybe putting some money away, either for a house investment or for future investment. So, so if you take the economics of college versus no college, if you do the math, you better be going to school for a good degree, because the math, by today, what we're looking at today, it's hard to justify that college debt. You better really have something you want to do or be able to get your return on investment.
Yeah, we're just talking economics here. I mean, this is just, you work the numbers, and once upon a time, it used to be a cliche. I remember a movie saying I got a degree in Elizabethan poetry. Yeah. Okay. Well, what are you going to do with that? And it's very, very difficult for someone with one of those off degrees to find a good paying job. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's the same thing with, I worked in radio for very, very large portion of my career.
Yep.
There are people who make the kind of money that you're talking about, but they are the exception. They are not the rule. And it wasn't that long ago that I worked in Omaha, and I was just working part-time, and I was filling in and doing different stuff for them. I made $10 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was on a mid-market radio station making $10 an hour.
Yeah. In my day, you can't get people at McDonald's for $20 an hour. Realistically, honestly, that is around here. It's pretty close between 17 and $20 an hour is kind of the new minimum wage standard per area. Now, federal minimum wage says it's $7.50 an hour, but you're not going to get anybody unless you're paying them, 16 to $20 an hour. It's just not worth it for them, if you know what I'm saying. So that makes it tough. So makes it really tough as far as trying to make it work. So, if you're young and you understand anything, I would encourage you, if your high school's got a high school economics class, or if they got a house budgeting 101 class, I would encourage any young person to understand household economics and what it takes, not just around business, just to be in your home and understand the true costs of owning a home or even renting an apartment, and some do's and don'ts that you shouldn't do. Because if you start looking at the math there, it definitely is an eye opener, for the way to put it. Hey, got crop duster flying over this morning. You really got to tailor this. Plus, the other thing that people need to understand, and inflation. When the government, this all comes back to, a lot of this started back before COVID, right after COVID. Hey, we got to stimulate the economy. We got to print all this money. All of a sudden, the inflation comes up. Well, when the government is borrowing money from itself, essentially, and the interest starts rising up, there's a direct impact. For everybody, from materials to labor, because that means stuff is worth less. It might be higher price. It doesn't mean it's any better value. That's the economics of it. That it's worth less. Unfortunately, that's huge. And understand how inflation and the government borrowing money for itself to be able to, quote unquote, stimulate the economy, it is an instant jolt. It'll help it'll help jumpstart things. But if you can't control inflation, and people now are bitching about 7-8% inflation. I mean, I grew up in the late 70s when inflation was 19-20%. You were around at that time,
Yeah.
Todd. And so I think when the government's talking about borrowing money and printing money, all through the national debt, which says the national debt does not make a difference. This year, I think it was last month, is the first time the federal government could not make the interest payment on on their federal debt.
Wow.
So they cannot make the interest payment because that's how much debt. It's only getting worse. So at some point, we're going to have an economic catastrophe. What does that look like? Who knows? But I think you really need to understand. If you're a young person, you really I don't care politically, but you need to understand how money works, how a household works, even if you're an individual, to be able. And I don't know that's getting taught in school, but I'm going to tell you, there's people out there that you can read and understand that if you're not doing yourself any favors.
We grew up in a time, and I think, I don't know how much it still goes on, but did anybody in your family ever talk to you about finances when you were growing up? Because they didn't me.
My grandfather did a little bit because he farmed. My parents, hell, they spent money like drunken sailors. It is what it is. So,
right. So it's kind of a thing that you don't talk to kids about finances because the theory is you don't want to stress them out and put adult things on them, but you got to find a way to do it because kids, and I was one of them. I turned 18, graduated high school, should be figuring things out on my own. Didn't have a clue. No clue on how all of this worked.
And you want it. I mean, you want it. And one of the best, they talk about entrepreneurial stuff. And I think entrepreneurship's great. We want to get people investment. I think part of it is how much does it cost to start? How much does it do the startup? What do you need to have for capital, raise, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's important. I think it's great that people talk about it. Probably one of the best things I ever did, or I allowed to happen, I guess you should say, when Hayden was 16, one of my sons, he decided he wanted to bale hay, wanted to do custom baling that summer. He bought the tractor, he bought the baler, he had all the stuff to do it, went out, started to do it, started having problems with equipment. He's competing against guys that got, $100,000 balers and $300,000 tractors with a $5,000 baler and a $10,000 tractor. And, when they're literally running circles around you, because it's newer, it's faster, it's, modern equipment. You find out it doesn't matter how hard you work. If you're not set up to have the things in place that you need to do to be able to do the job, you're gonna lose. It financially hurt. It personally hurt because he found out no matter how hard he worked, sometimes weren't meant to be. And and unfortunately, it sucked, but it's a great lesson for him because now as a new business owner with the plumbing side of the business, he remembers that sting very well, actually. And some of the decisions he's made because he goes, I don't want to be in that position again. And I think that's huge. But he had an opportunity that not every kid does. But if you as a parent aren't sitting down and talking basic economics, basic math, you're just giving your kids money. That's not how the world works. And you're definitely doing your family an injustice. So, I'm fully for young kids learning about. And putting their neck out there a little bit. But the adults that are in the room need to understand what's going on too, and hopefully help manage it. And you never know, but the one thing you do know is if you don't try it, you'll never find out if it was any good or not. If that makes sense.
It does. I have thought for a while, and I know that you do as well, that the kind of stuff you're talking about with young people looking at getting into the trades, give it a shot. Just see whether or not this is something that speaks to you and something that you have a capability of learning and can see yourself doing this as a career, just check it out. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that it's for everybody. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But find out. And
Mm-hmm.
because it needs to, we've gotten, I think, away from, it used to be that it was just looked down completely on, and college was the only way to success. That thought process was there. I think we're cycling away from that, but I don't know that it's completely gone.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You hear the stories and you read some stuff now about how some high school teacher, young buck, went to college, is making fun of the maintenance guy that's fixing the hydrant or fixing something there. And says, "You don't want to be like that guy." Well, that guy's probably making more than the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Probably has most of his stuff paid off. Doesn't have any school debt. You know what I'm saying? It's probably living pretty good. But yeah, you don't want to be that guy. So it's all about, it's all about the look. Yeah, everybody would like to be Taylor Swift. Well, I don't, but everybody wants to be Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. But the reality, not everyone's Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce. It just does not work like that. So um, it's very, I don't know if the word's interesting, but you have to understand. Like I said, it still goes down to it's understand the money part of the business. And I would be the first one to tell you, knowing what I know now, 15 years after my business, I am so far financially as far as understanding. Doesn't mean I'm great at it. I'm not, I'm still learning stuff every day. But I at least understand, right? If I have as far as how money works, how hard it is to make money, how hard it is um, to make a dollar and what's all involved with it. And most people don't understand that when they go in the business. He does it for $100 now, I do it for $20 now. Yeah, you might be able to until you grow. You got to buy stuff. You know, um, and that's not an easy lesson. That's not an easy lesson to learn. And so many businesses, it's why I joined a franchise, whether I love it or hate it. And there'll be and everybody knows I have my opinion on my franchise, but here's what I say: the reason I joined the franchise was not because of the brand name, God no, but it was because it was for understanding the financial literacy of the business. It was not for the, oh, hey, I want to be an air serve, oh, I want to do this, oh, we need to do marketing this way. It was for the financial literacy part of it, is why I joined the franchise. And the guy that I had the first 4 years, listen, his name's Randy Smith. He's a good guy. We fought like two bulls in a friggin' china closet. I'll call it for what it is. I'm sure that shocks nobody. But I'll give him this. He wasn't perfect, but he forced you to understand and look at things and understand where numbers should be and what numbers need to be like. And if something's out of whack, why is it? Is it productivity? Are you spending too much? He also, tell you have to be on a swivel, or I'd call it a teeter totter. If the teeter totter sitting like this pretty flat, it's great. But when the teeter totter starts going like this, that's when you can have some real issues, if you know what I'm saying. So, so try to keep that teeter totter in balance, but it's hard and it's always moving. The ball's always moving. Um, and you have to be on top of that. I want to circle back to something you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Giving it a chance. Um, I heard a story here yesterday, actually. Person we used to work at Glenwood Resource Center. Of course, Glenwood Resource Center closed here
Right.
earlier this year. Worked there for 30 years, everything she knew. Had a good job, but didn't have any certifications, didn't have anything formal, but she worked for the Resource Center. Stayed there till they closed. And this person who's 55 years old is having to go back down to get her CNA, so that way she can go be in, essentially go be basically go work in a nursing home or a hospital as a helper, you know, and but and this person was mad because the hospital, the place she worked, didn't give her the train. They gave her training. They just didn't give her any certifications or anything behind it that was worth anything. So she's left with nothing. And I understand why she's mad, but at the end of the day, it's their responsibility. It's your responsibility to make sure that no matter what happens, you've got a backup plan to be able to, you know, to be able to take care of yourself and your family. Because I'd hate to think at 55 years old, if I had to start over and go back to school because I had no certifications, I don't know what I'd be like. And there's no reason to do that in this day and age.
Makes sense. Well, sir, I know that your schedule is you're dragging a camper over, aren't you? Is today to take the camper over?
We're leaving probably between 3 and 4. I got a couple things I do, but mid-afternoon. This is going to be a quick trip this weekend, Labor Day weekend. So it's going to be a quick trip back and over. We've been really busy with work, and so I need to kind of get back, but want to get the camper set up and whatever. So next Friday, go over and kind of enjoy it more. Well, the bad part is I'm missing the Lewis Central Harlan game tonight up at Harlan, but I'll probably end up listening to that game. But it'd be a good time, get a couple days, get some bonding time, with one of my sons and a friend of ours. So we're gonna go over and do that and enjoy Labor Day. It's been a good year. We've been we've done well. We've done okay. Like I said, somebody's looking over us, making sure that trying to do things right, and it's been pretty good. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to see it the rest of the year. Looks like we know it's gonna be 3 months of batshit crazy because between the election and the election we got coming up, and Lord, boy, I mean, it'd be more fun to go watch a couple drunken sailors, but that's a story for another day. But it's. Yeah, and then with football and just life going on, I mean, it's hard to believe that basically tomorrow's going to be, or Sunday's going to be September 1st. It's like, where the hell's the year gone?
Yeah, it's gone quick.
Yeah, definitely has. So, but I look forward to it. Yeah, we plan on having a guest on the next week. I got someone from my corporate. She's a Californian, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not a native, but she lives out there now. I call it the left coast, or the wrong coast is what I call it. I don't call it the left coast. So. Equal opportunity offender, because that's the kind of person I am.
Yeah, that's true. Well, sir, enjoy the trip, enjoy the game, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
We'll be back hopefully next week with another episode of Circle of Trades. Until then, take care.